If you're going to stir things up again, don't bother coming tomorrow. That's what my mother said to me on Christmas Eve. No hesitation, no flicker of doubt in her voice. Just the same cold, tired look she always gave me whenever I stepped 1 inch out of the role they assigned me, the quiet one, the compliant one, the daughter who should know better. My voice didn't even make it out of my mouth. It just caught in my throat like a lump of shame, because once again, I was the problem, not Olivia. Me. And all I'd done was tell the truth. The truth that I'd been sending them money every month since July. Quietly. Without fanfare. Without ever asking for thanks. They were struggling. Bills piling up, the house needing repairs, Dad's part-time hours being cut. I noticed before they ever asked, and I didn't want them to feel embarrassed, so I just helped. Even skipped my own birthday dinner so I could cover their power bill without them knowing. I didn't post about it. I didn't brag. But Olivia? She found out. She somehow saw one of the receipts on Dad's phone, and instead of asking me, she claimed it was her. Told them she had been helping behind the scenes all along, said it with a smile so sweet it gave my mother goosebumps, and they believed her, instantly, not a single question, not even a moment of hesitation. My mom looked so proud that day. "You've really grown up, Liv," she said, clutching her hand like some Hallmark movie mother. "We're so lucky to have you." Meanwhile, I sat in the same room, mouth half open, waiting for the words to land in a way that didn't crush me. They never did. I didn't say anything right away. I told myself maybe Olivia would clear it up on her own. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. But days passed. Then weeks, and every time the subject came up, she doubled down, until Christmas Eve, when I finally said something. I pulled my mom aside, gently, respectfully. I said, "Mom, I just want to clarify something. The money you've been getting? That was from me, not Olivia." She blinked. Once. Then her face hardened. "Don't do this," she said. "It's Christmas. Don't ruin it with your jealousy." Jealousy. That word hit like a slap. I stared at her, stunned, trying to read her eyes, trying to find even one speck of hesitation, one drop of doubt. But there was nothing, just cold conviction. Like she was tired of dealing with me. Like this was typical Elise drama. My father was sitting by the fireplace when I walked back in. He looked up briefly, then back at his phone. I opened my mouth, closed it, and sat down like I'd been trained to. For a moment, I thought maybe Olivia would speak up. Maybe she'd chuckle and say, Okay, fine. Elise helped too." Something to throw me a bone. But all she did was sip her wine, smile sweetly, and act like the room hadn't just collapsed around me. I was 26 years old, sitting at the same family table I'd grown up at, feeling like a stranger in a house I used to call home. And the worst part? This wasn't new. Olivia has always been their golden child, the loud one, the wild one, the daughter who wrecked cars, snuck out, got fired from jobs, and still came home to warm hugs and, "We all make mistakes." Me? I got straight A's. Paid my own rent since 19. Held down the same job for 4 years. Sent money without anyone asking. But I wasn't the fun one. I was the too serious one. The one who overthinks everything. The one they called when Olivia got herself into trouble, but forgot to invite to family brunch. I spent my 20s cleaning up her messes, defending her, explaining her away to boyfriends and bosses. And still, the moment I tried to speak my own truth, I was stirring things up. When Mom told me not to come back if I was going to bring that energy, I stood up from the table. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just grabbed my coat, looked at Olivia one last time, and walked out. And the sound that followed me wasn't footsteps, it was silence. No one followed me. No one called after me. Not my mother. Not my father. Not even Olivia. I got in my car, sat there with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The lights from inside the house twinkled through, the frosted windows casting the kind of soft, cozy glow you'd see on a postcard. It looked like peace from the outside. But inside, that house had never felt more hollow. I drove aimlessly for a while, past the neighborhood where I learned to ride my bike, past the diner where I had my first real date, past the elementary school where I used to walk Olivia home from when she was too scared to go alone. Funny, isn't it? How the same places that built you can eventually feel like ghosts. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would. I braced for it. The sobbing, the gut punch ache, the anger. But nothing came. Just quiet. Stillness. Like something inside me had finally stopped trying. And that silence, it scared me more than anything, because I realized in that moment, I wasn't just walking away from the fight. I was walking away from the role I'd played my entire life. The fixer, the forgiver, the invisible sister, the quiet daughter. And maybe, just maybe, it was time they learned what my silence really meant: not surrender but distance, not weakness, but clarity. I used to cry when they turned their backs on me, but this time, I didn't shed a single tear, because I knew deep down that silence inside me was louder than any scream I could have given them. I thought someone would call. I thought maybe after I walked out, they'd sit with the silence and finally start, wondering why I left without raising my voice. I thought they'd miss me. I thought they'd care enough to check. But no one did. No text. No voicemail. No apology. Just nothing. Until the next morning when I opened Instagram and saw her Olivia sitting at brunch with my mom, 2 mimosas in hand, laughing like the night before had never happened. The caption said, "Some people talk, others show up." No tags, no direct mention. But the aim? It landed right between my ribs. That photo didn't just sting. It buried me. Without saying my name, she carved it into the wall. I was the outsider. I was the problem. I was irrelevant. I remember just staring at the screen for a long time, not blinking, not moving, not breathing. Because there it was. Proof that my mother didn't just choose to believe Olivia's lie, she celebrated it. Aunt Karen messaged me later that day. She'd always claimed to love both of us equally, the kind of aunt who'd send passive-aggressive holiday texts with Bible quotes. She wrote, "You've always been a little dramatic, Elise. Maybe this isn't worth the war." Worth the war. She said it like this was some petty squabble, like this wasn't about identity theft, about emotional theft, about watching your whole character be handed to someone else and being told to smile while they wear it. Even the why. Family members who said nothing were still making a choice. Every silence felt like a vote, and they weren't voting for me. That's when the questions started creeping in. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe Olivia didn't mean harm. Maybe I twisted it. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe this was just another moment where I made things worse by not letting it go. I've been called sensitive my whole life. I've been told to let it go so often it echoes in my mind when no one's speaking. But that night something different stirred inside me. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. Because I started remembering every birthday Olivia ruined, from tantrums to stolen gifts, every party where I had to apologize for her words, every time she screamed at Mom, then turned to me and said, "Fix it." Every time, I did. Every time they expected me to. I've been swallowing my voice for years, and the only difference now is that I finally said something out loud. And that was the unforgivable part. It wasn't the lie that shook them. It was the fact that I refused to sit quietly beneath it. Still, I needed proof. I needed something solid, so I opened my banking app. My hands were shaking, but I was ready to show them the trail. The truth. And of course, it wouldn't open. Just a flashing error message. Temporary technical outage. Please try again later. I closed it. Reopened it. Force quit. Restarted. Nothing. It was like the universe itself conspired to keep me voiceless. I tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. Because when Olivia found out, she smirked and said, "Of course your app doesn't work when you need it most." Like I was faking it. Like I made up the entire thing. Like the truth was something I invented to feel important. I should have screamed. I should have fought back harder. But instead, I shut down. I deleted my Instagram, ignored every call, didn't show up for work for 2 days. And I never miss work. I couldn't focus, couldn't breathe, couldn't even stand to look at my own reflection because it just reminded me of who I was in their story. Dramatic, jealous, the disruptor. There was this one night, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by old journals, pages filled with things I never said out loud. There were entries from high school about how Olivia got away with everything, notes from college where I begged them to come visit, and they never did, because they were too tired after helping Olivia move. Even an old list I wrote of ways to be a better daughter. I burned it, lit the page with a match and dropped it into a metal bowl, watched it turn to ash. That was the only time I felt warmth that week. Then, one night, my phone buzzed, a single message from Nina. We hadn't spoken in months. She wrote, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but if you need a place to stay or someone to talk to, I'm here." That one message, 11 words, cracked something open. I stared at it for a full minute, reread it twice, then just sat there, holding my phone like it was something fragile. I didn't know what to say, but I typed back, "Can I come by tomorrow?" And she said, "Of course, doors open." I didn't sleep much that night, but I felt something shift. Not the world, not the situation, not even the pain, just the weight of carrying it alone, because someone else was offering to hold a piece of it with me. The next day, I sat on Nina's couch and told her everything. The money, the lie, the brunch photo, the silence. I expected her to laugh it off or tell me to let it go. But she didn't. She just listened. Really listened, and at the end of it all, she said, "I believe you. Not all the way, not loudly, but enough. Enough to keep me from falling off the edge. Enough to remind me that I wasn't crazy. That maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about drama. It was about finally refusing to play the role they'd always assigned me. I still didn't have proof. My bank app was still down. The texts were still silent. But I had something I hadn't had in a long, long time. A witness. A crack of light. A thread I wasn't letting go of. Not this time. Because even if the world thought I was invisible, I was about to prove just how clearly I saw them. Nina didn't press me. She made me tea, wrapped me in the softest blanket she had, and just waited. No questions, no judgment, no pressure. It was the quietest kindness I'd felt in months. And that's when it clicked. My bank app had crashed, sure. But every time I sent a transfer, I got an email confirmation. I'd forgotten all about them. But now, sitting in her dimly lit living room, something sparked. A quiet urgency I hadn't felt in days. I grabbed my laptop, hands trembling slightly. Nina sat beside me, watching without saying a word. I opened my email, typed transfer, confirmation in the search bar, hit enter. There they were, 6 perfect timestamps: July, August, September, October, November, December. Every single transfer, every amount, every matching recipient name, our parents. Proof. Real, quiet, irrefutable proof. My heart thudded in my ears. I stared at the screen, then looked up at Nina. I knew it. I whispered. Without waiting, I started printing them out, one by one. Nina leaned over the table as I laid them out like playing cards. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Elise," she said softly, "this is solid. There's no way she can talk her way out of this." For the first time in days, I believed that too. But I didn't smile, because this wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about something deeper. About finally holding up a mirror to people who had only ever seen what they wanted to see, even if it meant carving me out of the picture entirely. That night, I didn't cry. Didn't spiral. Didn't check Instagram or scroll through texts hoping for something that would make me feel better. I journaled, just sat there and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. They didn't believe me because they never had to. It sat there like truth I'd been too scared to speak. And suddenly I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt awake. The next morning, I called my boss, told him I needed a personal day. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Take care of yourself." Then, I picked up my phone and typed a single message to my mom. "I'll be at dinner tonight. I have something to say." She didn't reply, but this time I didn't need her permission to be heard. I didn't choose war. I chose clarity, because when people call you dramatic for telling the truth, you learn how to become surgical with your silence. I dressed simply. A plain black dress, hair tied back, no makeup, no gloss. I didn't want to look impressive. I wanted to feel untouchable. I held the receipts in a small envelope, tucked it into my purse. My hands didn't shake anymore. All week, they'd painted me as unstable, overreacting, jealous. And for years, I'd fought to prove I was none of those things. But that night, I wasn't going to fight. I was going to reveal. There's a power in restraint that people underestimate. They expect you to explode, to break things, to beg for understanding. But when you just sit there, still, calm, focused, they don't know what to do with it. They start feeling the weight of everything they've said, even if they won't admit it. And suddenly, it's you who holds the mirror. I thought about Olivia, about all the times she'd watched me shrink so she could shine, about how she weaponized my quiet and wore it like a crown. I wasn't walking into that house for her. I was walking in for the girl who used to cry in her room after being told she was too much and not enough in the same sentence. I was walking in for every version of myself that swallowed pain with a smile. I drove the familiar route with the windows down. The cold air felt good against my face, like I was waking up in real time. I didn't rehearse what I'd say, didn't plan a speech, because I didn't need to convince them anymore. I just needed to show them. Truth doesn't need performance. It just needs light. I arrived 10 minutes before dinner, parked in the driveway like I belonged there. And I did. Whether they were ready to face it or not, I wasn't leaving quietly this time. I rang the bell, envelope in hand, and waited. I didn't feel fear. I felt complete. Not because I knew I'd win, but because I knew I wouldn't lose myself trying. That house had taught me how to shrink. But that night, I was walking in with every piece of myself stitched back together, without their help. Not for revenge, for reckoning. Because the truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it arrives dressed in black with a calm voice and receipts in her purse. They wanted me quiet. They got silence. But it wasn't the kind they were ready for. It was the kind that says, "I saw everything." And I remember. Tonight, I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't argue. I'd simply let the truth breathe and watch what they did with it. I wasn't there to prove I was right. I was there to show them they were wrong. And that was more than enough. Dinner was loud. Warm laughter. Clinking silverware. Smiling faces passing around bowls of mashed potatoes like nothing had happened until I stepped inside. The air didn't change immediately. But Olivia froze. Her face twitched, just slightly, like the ghost of a frown almost crossed it before she caught herself. She didn't expect me to come back. Not like this. Not dressed in calm, not standing still, not carrying silence like it was armor. She recovered fast, sat tall, flashed her teeth, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like she'd just come from winning a pageant. I didn't look at her. Not yet. I sat near the edge of the table, smiled politely at my cousins, answered my aunt's question about work, sipped water. I let her sweat, because people like Olivia expect explosions. They know how to win against fire. But water? Calm? Quiet? That's where they drown. She waited. Played the room, told jokes, made conversation with Uncle Pete about travel deals, laughed a little too loudly, but her eyes flicked to me, again and again, waiting for me to break the moment. To make it about me, to give her something to work with. I didn't. I waited until dessert, pumpkin pie slices being passed, wine being poured. Then she stood, right on cue. She cleared her throat gently, with that false humility she wore like perfume. Before we end the night, she said, pausing just long enough to pull attention. I just want to thank everyone for their support. It's been tough, dealing with false accusations. She looked at me, like a dagger behind glass. The table fell silent. But I've always done what I could to support Mom and Dad, she continued. I never wanted credit. I just wanted peace. Her voice trembled at the edges, like a violin just out of tune, and then, tears, soft ones, perfectly timed, held just long enough to glisten, but not long enough to smudge her mascara. Applause followed, soft but real. Someone said, "You're so strong, Liv." Someone else muttered, "Family can be hard sometimes." And, for a split second, I felt the air tighten around my ribs. The old version of me, the one who would have swallowed it again, smiled again, stayed silent again. She almost took the wheel. But I didn't let her. I stood up. No fire, just stillness. I didn't come here for a fight, I said, my voice even. I came here to tell the truth and let it stand on its own. The room blinked, faces turned, glasses paused halfway to mouths. I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope, set it gently on the table in front of my parents. 6 months of receipts, I said. Bank confirmations, all from my account, all to yours. My father stared at the envelope like it might bite him. My mother opened it slowly, hands trembling more than she probably realized. One by one, they unfolded the pages. August, September, October. My name, my account, my sacrifice. I didn't speak. While they read, I didn't need to. Because for once, the evidence spoke louder than any apology I'd never get. These, my dad finally said, voice thin. These aren't Olivia's. He looked up, blinking. They're from Elise's account. There it was. The shift. You could feel it in the room, the way chairs didn't move, the way forks stopped midair, the way no one dared breathe too loudly. Olivia panicked. You could see it, that flicker behind her eyes, trying to locate. A backup plan. Oh, she stammered. Well, I just assumed Elise didn't want the credit. She told me once she wanted to keep it quiet. I didn't realize. She trailed off, fingers curling against her wine glass like it might steady. It was a misunderstanding, she added quickly. That's all. A mix-up. Nina stood up beside me. Her voice was steady. No, you knew. You stole her truth. You lied. Simple, direct, undeniable. Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her cheeks flushed. Her hands trembled. The mask slipped. I didn't think it would turn into this, she whispered. Then the tears came, but not soft this time. Angry, frustrated, uncontrolled. She turned sharply, knocking her chair slightly out of place, grabbed her coat with fingers that fumbled. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "You all want a villain? Fine. I lied, okay? I lied. Happy now?" No one answered. No one stood. She stormed out, and no one chased her. Not even my mother. I stood there, for a second, watching the door close behind her. I didn't feel victorious. I felt quiet. Like a storm had passed through me instead of around me. My dad sat down, said nothing. My mom looked at the receipts again like she was reading them for the first time, and me? I exhaled, because for once, I didn't have to scream to be heard. I didn't have to cry to be seen. I didn't have to shatter to prove something had been broken. I just stood in the center of it all, calm, still, complete, and let the truth speak. Let it echo. Let it wrap itself around every person who had ever looked through me like glass. There was power in that, not revenge, just clarity. And that, somehow, was louder than anything Olivia had ever performed. I didn't gloat, didn't lecture, didn't offer to help clean up. I simply gathered my things and walked out the door. Not because I was running away, but because I had nothing left to prove. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the loud one. I didn't need to be. The truth had finally spoken. And this time, it chose me. The next morning, my phone buzzed, a text from my mom. "We were wrong. We're sorry. We didn't listen. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while, not with anger, not with bitterness, just stillness, because I'd waited years to hear those words. But by the time they arrived, I no longer needed them to breathe. I typed back, "Thank you, but I need time and space." Then I turned my phone off, not out of defiance, but because I wanted the silence. This time, I chose it. I booked a cabin for the weekend, just outside the city. Nothing fancy. Wooden walls, a fireplace, and no cell service. Perfect. I packed a few things. My journal, a stack of books, and the envelope, the one with the receipts. Not because I needed to prove anything to anyone, just to remind myself I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined it, that the truth had always been right there, quietly waiting for me to stop apologizing for it. The cabin smelled like cedar and snow. I made tea, lit a fire, and sat cross-legged on the floor with my journal in my lap. I didn't write about them. I wrote about me. About how easy it had been to shrink myself to make space for people who never even saw me. About how hard it had been to stand still while someone else wore my story like it was theirs. About how grief doesn't always come with loss. Sometimes it comes with clarity. That night, I wrote a new line at the top of the page. Being believed isn't validation, it's liberation. It hit me so hard, I read it aloud, and then I cried. Not out of pain, but out of release. Later that evening, I framed one of the receipts. The first one, from July. I didn't do it to gloat, or to hold on to the past. I did it to remind myself who I was before they made me question it. It wasn't revenge, it was proof. Proof that I chose silence, until silence became too heavy to carry. My parents emailed again a few days later, offered therapy, conversations, a fresh start. They meant well. I believe that now, but I wasn't the same daughter they thought they knew, because this time I didn't respond with, "Sure, whatever works for you." I set terms, clear ones, not boundaries they could bend when it made them uncomfortable, but conditions they had to honor if they wanted to stay in my life. I told them I wouldn't come to any family gathering where apologies were implied, but never spoken. Told them I wouldn't pretend to laugh through dinners while history went unacknowledged. And I told them I wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship just to make them feel better about what happened. I was rebuilding something. But it wasn't for them, it was for me. I didn't need Olivia's apology. I didn't even want it. Her downfall wasn't the point. My peace was. Because when someone steals your voice and the world applauds their echo, it's easy to think the only way back is to scream louder. But sometimes, healing is quieter than revenge. Sometimes, it looks like walking away with the truth and letting them keep the noise. They always told me to be the quiet one, to let things go, to avoid starting drama. But what they never understood is that silence isn't always peace. Sometimes silence is pain dressed in obedience. Sometimes it's betrayal painted as maturity. Sometimes it's rage with nowhere to go, so it folds itself into a smile. And other times, it becomes power. Not loud, not cruel, just real. I found freedom in that, in knowing I didn't have to prove I was good to people who decided I wasn't. In realizing that I could love my family and still protect myself from them. In understanding that peace isn't something you earn by being quiet. It's something you choose by being whole. I go on walks now. Solo dinners, phone on silent. No need to explain where I am or who I'm with. I don't check their social media anymore. I don't read between the lines of their texts. I don't rewrite my boundaries to fit their comfort. I write for myself. I speak for myself. And I stay silent. Only when I choose to be. I've learned that survival teaches you to be small. But healing teaches you to be full, whole, unapologetically present in your own skin. I lost a lot, yes. But what I gained wasn't just clarity. It was the version of me who no longer whispers her truth like a confession. The version of me who walks away, not because she's afraid, but because she finally understands her worth doesn't live in someone else's eyes. They told me not to come if I wanted drama, so I didn't. I brought the truth instead.